Domestic Tranquility.
Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an ailment without which it instantly expires. James Madison's quote from Federalist Paper 10 perfectly encapsulates the power struggle between the freedom of expression and the domestic tranquility of a nation. Throughout the paper, Madison explains his take on factions, defining a faction as a group of citizens advocating for interests which disregard the rights of other individuals or the common good. Interest groups such as parties are not inherently factious in nature, for these groups are only considered factions when their focus leans away from promoting public welfare and into advocating for a cause that would strip others of their rights. Madison also explores what nourishes a faction and, in turn, what can prevent them. His solution centered around a well-constructed union, claiming that it could withstand the violence of faction. This seemingly simplistic answer elicits the question, what are the components of a well-constructed union? Madison's vision for a secure union is a representative republic, which he is adamant to distinguish from a direct democracy. A direct democracy can be seen in ancient Athens, Greece, where every citizen with suffrage contributed to the administration of the government. Rather than electing a representative to create and alter laws, individual citizens would directly vote and offer their ideas for a government. This form of government, he says, is unsustainable because it is highly prone to becoming swept up in the passions of a majority and therefore lacks anything to, quote, check the inducements to sacrifice the weaker party or an obnoxious individual, quote. Additionally, within this system, there is no group of leaders elected to exemplify the virtues of a nation, leaving an ambiguous set of values that is easily overthrown. Hence, direct democracy can lead to factions that oppress by majority rule that is easy to direct, but not to quell. Representative republics distinguish themselves from direct democracies in that they include a representative system and a greater opportunity for population growth. The principle behind a representative system is to select the most virtuous people to lead out of the mass of men. However, this system can be flipped on its head when corrupt men swindle their way into office by manipulating their following into thinking they are virtuous. Due to the advantages that a representative republic offers in regards to its population, the large pool of electors would diminish the chances of dishonesty fooling the majority. The larger a group is, the more safeguard there is from allowing foul play within a government. This is what Federalist James Madison claims would protect the nation from factious outbreak. But the state of our union tells a different story. A popular government is a government for the people and by the people. Naturally, the foundation of popular governments, whether that be direct democracy or a representative republic, is freedom of expression, which promotes the free circulation of opinions and ideas. The fallenness of humankind tends to inhibit two people with opposing views from having a completely civil, open-minded discussion without prompting harsh defense from one or both parties. This human tendency translates even more drastically to groups of people engaging in discourse due to the threat of the quantity of people, sometimes leading to organized political violence. As Cicero writes in his Republic, and Alexis de Tocqueville in his Democracy in America, democracy's fatal flaw is its susceptibility to being overthrown by the tyranny of the majority. The factions that have taken center stage in American politics degrade the unity of the system and pit American citizens against each other, acting as a catalyst for division. From protests against some of our foundational amendments, such as the right to bear arms, to threatening the lives of politicians and challenging security of the homeland, many fear that America is fractured beyond repair and more divided than ever. Fortunately, extremist beliefs are something very familiar to our nation. America was sparked by a revolution and infamously indulged in a civil war not a century later. Even after these tough times, though, the Union has prevailed and proven its resiliency. In the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, it is stated that the Constitution itself was established to ensure domestic tranquility. The combination of free expression and internal peace seems to be a paradox. How can the government ensure domestic tranquility and prevent faction while allowing unmonitored debate to take place, both within the government and outside of it? The dilemma of freedom of expression is in its duality of being the crux which popular government rests on, while simultaneously inciting conflict which can escalate to factious political violence. It is clear that the strength of a union cannot rely solely on governmental structure. To aid its problems pertaining to political violence, it is equally important for individual citizens to perform the duty of care that comes with citizenship. The essence of the United States of America is in its fiercely loyal dedication to the First Amendment. The circulation of ideas, opinions, and information was established as a founding virtue of our nation in order for its people to be truly free, and its importance cannot be overstated. Without the freedom of expression, consensus would be an illusion, ignorance would be the default, and democracy a meaningless title of a thought-dictating government. This liberty, though, is accompanied by an argumentative human nature prone to the formation of factions. That the American citizen can express any opinion imaginable poses ample opportunity for antagonizing speech, which can escalate to physical violence. This process is especially dangerous in cases of inflammatory media, due to its large audiences, which can be conditioned into factious thinking. It is for these reasons that the freedom of the press must be exercised responsibly and diligently by the media. The freedom of the press allows publications to express every voice with no abridgments, giving great importance to the media as the sole mediators between the nation's capital and the real world, especially in the age of technology. The media can facilitate warped perceptions of current events in the same way that social media can promote unrealistic lifestyles to young minds. The role of the media is so apparent that with enough attention and frenzy surrounding any given piece of press, an opinion disguised as fact can overshadow the truth. This is a consequence of a culture that does not hold the press accountable, enabling the media to obscure the viewer's search for truth. In order for a union to ensure domestic tranquility while allowing for freedom of the press, there must be transparency given to both sides of an argument, especially within partisan media. Partisan media is media in any form that leans towards one side of the political aisle, catering to an audience of like-minded viewers. Negative, inflammatory propaganda is extremely easy to slip into partisan media due to its opinionated nature, but to prohibit this from happening would entail a breach on the freedom of the press. Because this form of media has a demographic that is inclined to support its political conclusions, the danger lies in the effect on that demographic rather than a politically neutral one. This is a form of confirmation bias, and it can create an unwillingness to listen to opposing viewpoints, thus perpetuating polarization between America's major political groups. Since our founding, the tendency of the American press has been to express opinions in an unapologetic manner that casually could be named slander, but does not technically reach the legal threshold. For instance, an 1831 newspaper published the following about its sitting president, Andrew Jackson. In this whole affair, the language used by Jackson was that of a heartless despot, concerned only to preserve his own power. Ambition is his crime, and it will be his punishment too. Intrigue is his vocation. That will be the downfall of his plans and will deprive him of his power. He governs by corruption, and his guilty maneuvers will result in his shame and confusion. He has acted in the political arena like a shameless and unbridled gambler. He has had some success, but the hour of his reckoning draws near. Soon he will have to return his winning, throw his false dice away, and end up in some backwater where he can freely curse his stupidity. For repentance is not a virtue with which his heart has ever been acquainted. Violent and emotionally charged articles like this are not at all foreign to the press, and its impact is that of a domino effect. One reporter publishes a piece filled with harsh, prejudicial language, and though a portion of readers will see the comments for what they are and take them with a grain of salt, the other portion will receive these words like a fire receives gasoline. This rhetoric is not so dangerous when accompanied by facts and a thorough exploration of the opponent's argument. However, it is rare for a journalist with such clear and strong biases to offer that additional insight. As citizens of America, we may not be obligated to be respectful and productive in discussions with those whose views do not align with our own, nor is the press obligated to do so. However, it is undoubtedly patriotic and in the best interest of our country to do so. To perform such a duty, it is important for the American press to use its freedoms responsibly to maintain the strong union that Madison insists is the remedy to factious outbreak. As the press is the source from which Americans learn about current events and hear interpretations of the modern political world, it is responsible for shaping public opinion and acts as a jury for political happenings. The effect of the media on America is too profound to be used as an outlet for the personal ramblings of journalists. This cannot be legally monitored, though, as trampling on the freedom of the press would defeat democracy and rightfully enrage the nation. The press also sets the attitude of a nation towards its government. Though a united people majorly contributes to a united nation, it is not the sole ingredient of one. For true unity to be established within a nation, there must be respect for the government. Respecting the government includes pushing for its improvement through reasonable, nonviolent means, such as peaceful protests and even criticism from the press. Where there is an overwhelming sense of disrespect towards a government, there is a violent faction waiting to risk the lives of others. This malice begins as a destructive headline on the news seeking to inflame rather than to progress. Unless the media commits treason by levying war or offering support to U.S. enemies, the government has no right to interfere with these news stories. However, if these articles incite action that escalates to insurrection, the media will have done its damage by then. What typically follows harm caused by an event is to put legal restrictions in place to prevent it from occurring. So, if the press has such powerful and potentially violent reins on the American citizens' attitudes and behaviors, the usual next step would be to limit the freedoms of the press. However, the instrumental role of the press in American culture and politics is the very reason why putting legal limitations on its freedoms would be completely counterproductive to domestic tranquility. The effect of hindering these freedoms would be far more detrimental to popular sovereignty than faction would be to the internal peace of the nation. Trampling on free press within our current society would cause a twofold reaction, including a loss of America's core values, and in turn, an enraged population. It is because of the imperative nature of the freedom of the press that individual responsibility lies on the media to conduct itself virtuously. The fact that the First Amendment to the Constitution hinges itself on this freedom proves it to be a vital part of America's identity. Freedom of expression makes America the country it is, not only because the right itself is crucial to popular government, but also because of the melting pot of ideas and opinions that it has cultivated. Without freedom of expression, sameness in thought would suffocate diversity. And without our free press, those diverse ideas would stay in one place, never making contact with the widespread audience that the media is designed to reach. With its current freedoms, however, ideas have no physical boundary, and the echo of an opinion otherwise unique to one geographical location can be heard from across the country. The pillar of America, that is the freedom of the press, is recognized across party lines, and its suppression would spark outrage throughout the entire population. Freedom of the press does have its reasonable limits, of course. For instance, it is prohibited by federal law to commit sedition and seditious conspiracy. This entails the prohibition of the press to commit these, even under its freedoms. Sedition laws specifically target conspiracy to overthrow the government, but there are also laws protecting individuals from defamation, fighting words, and various other hostile expressions. The safeguards surrounding freedom of the press should be enough to keep media from being harmful, therefore eliminating the necessity of the press's temperance. While these exceptions to the First Amendment are designed to keep America as safe as it is free, more convoluted instances of harmful speech are simply byproducts of the human experience. As Alexis de Tocqueville puts it, the flexibility of human language perpetually eludes legal analysis. It is these complex cases that allow polarizing and misleading journalism to slip through the cracks of the First Amendment and into the reactionary general public. The press is the lifeblood of American politics, and the legal liberty that it wields is necessary for every American citizen to gain insights from every side of a situation. The necessity of this liberty, though, is easily exploited by media outlets in their search for readership and profit. Freedom of expression enables journalists to say virtually anything without repercussion, but legality is not always indicative of what is ethical. With this being said, it is perfectly legal for the media to spread harmful propaganda, utilizing tactics to spread lies rather than promoting a genuine investigation of truth. However, in order to create a more united American people, it would be journalistically irresponsible to encourage these tactics within a media company. Instead, the media can go beyond what is asked of them by the law by reporting with the intention of promoting domestic tranquility. Thank you.
Very well done, Stormy. Thank you. We'll begin some questions. The first one, in your research, did you find that the conversation surrounding freedom of expression centered more on the speaker than the listener, and is that dangerous? Or in other words, is the press or media malleable to the demands of the consumer, or are consumers more victims of those in charge of media?
I think that it's a symbiotic relationship, and consumers, of course, they can, what was the word, malleable? Is there a verb form of malleable? Malleate? I don't know. They can malleate. You guys can coin me. They can shape they can demand from the press what they want, and the press will give because they're looking for readership and profit, like I said. But also, I do think that the reader is very subject to be a victim of irresponsible press. So I think it goes both ways.
Good answer. So how would you convince the media to manage itself? Is there a method outside of the government to help prevent the media from becoming factious without defeating freedom of the press?
That's really what I struggled with in coming up with my thesis statement, because I reached the conclusion that the media should be responsible, of course, and then I was like, but how? And I never really came up with a clear answer or stumbled across any solutions in my research, but it is an issue that we need to work on. There definitely needs to be some sort of motivator for the media to stay responsible without the government having to step in.
Great answer. I have a few questions that are kind of pointing to your desire for there to be a universal pursuit of truth. And so would a universally defined pursuit understanding of virtue from a larger perspective help restore the fractures in our republic and correct the misuse of media?
Absolutely. I think that if everybody was focused on becoming a more virtuous population, then the press would fix itself, because the society, like I said, they kind of go hand in hand, and a virtuous people would certainly influence the press to be virtuous.
All right. Do you have any advice concerning how we as individuals should seek out trustworthy media? And what are red flags of poor media sources or marks of better ones? Is there a particular one that you would recommend that you have?
Well, I find that it's better to just read straight from the source. So if you see a news article and then they're like, this happened, then just go look that up and see the facts for yourself. I think that's really what's best.
So just avoid.
Just avoid listening to the media, guys. That's my thesis. Don't listen to the...
All right, last question. What made you interested in this topic?
So last year in history, we read the Federalist Papers, and Miss Kelly was like, do you think that America is doing a good job at staying united? And my initial answer was no, but then she kept kind of like asking, like, then what is a successful popular government if it's not this? Because we're pretty relatively peaceful, we're not at war. And it made me just really interested in Federalist Paper numbers 9, but 10 specifically, and just the dynamic of how we can allow people to be people while also not letting them be awful people.
Thank you so much.